folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app to your smartphone so you can stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. We can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today, and have a chance to talk to somebody who was part of an enclave of social and musical consciousness in the San Francisco area. I think the bottom line is that the contingent known as the San Francisco Mime Troupe can be summed up in one phrase, and I think it also applies to my guest and his playing and what he's stood for his entire professional and personal life. He's dedicated to the future and those who believe it's possible. Muziki, Duane, Roberson, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
It's an honor to have you, sir. Can you talk a little bit about who gave you your Swahili name and what it means?
My Swahili name was Msheza Muziki, and it was given to me by my Swahili teacher when I was attending City College of San Francisco. I can't recall his name. Unfortunately, my memory is kind of bad.
Oh, no, no, I mean, it's, we were, and at 41, I'm already starting to feel the pangs of memory, but.
Well, I'm 73, so.
Dude, let me ask you though, what was the impetus for you to get to take what kind of class were you taking? Why were you seeking your Swahili name or from the motherland?
Well, when I got out of the Army, I went to school on GI Bill, and they had a Swahili class, and I thought it might be interesting, and I might make it to Africa one of these days and be able to use it. I did make it to Africa, but Swahili wasn't the language that they were speaking. So.
I mean, can you talk? I'm always fascinated because guys like Max Roach, and we're doing a lot of education on the west side of Africa, trying to educate the people of Africa amidst the corruption. People like Ahmad Jamal, who I've interviewed, they wouldn't go to South Africa during apartheid. But can you talk a little bit about like what was surprising to you and what was enlightening to you about the motherland when you actually went?
Well, I went to Lagos, Nigeria in 1977. I was playing with Michael White.
Wow.
And
was Fela there? I mean, that's unbelievable, dude.
I was just getting ready to say, yeah. We hung out with Fela, and he invited us to the shrine, which was where he lived.
Wow.
And so we hung out with him, and I got to play with Stevie Wonder, and there was this band called Osibisa.
Yeah, I know it very well. Yeah.
And I got to play with them also. So that was one of the highlights of my life, being there in Lagos. And everybody was speaking English, so, I never really got to explore the Swahili that I did learn, and I'll forget all of it now except for my name, pretty much, and how to say hello.
Well, I mean that's fine. I mean, I just like so many of those. I mean, Mtume gave all his uncle Tootie and his father and Herbie and Julian. He gave them all their Swahili names, and there was this. I just was hoping you could talk to my audience around the world, especially younger cats, about an adherence to where you came from. Because and why it's so important, because I've dedicated my show to the cultural heritage of this country, but the humbling part about it is that, and through no fault of their own, just because of the saturation of material that's available and the full interconnection in the world, we seem to be less understood. We have less understanding of where we came from, and if we don't know where we came from, then we don't know where we're going. And I kind of wanted you to talk.
Well, that's true.
And I wanted you to just riff any way you wanted.
Well, you know, in the early 70s and the late 60s, that's when, you know, black consciousness movement was really happening. A lot of my friends were getting African names. And it was a time when the Black Panthers were happening, the Symbionese Liberation Army. There was a whole lot of consciousness happening around people of color. More so now, more so then probably than now in terms of just culture. That's why a lot of people were getting African names. I have a lot of friends that were getting Swahili names in particular. And it was like a trend among, you know, conscious African Americans.
What were some things, I mean, when you talk about enlightenment or, you know, consciousness, could you at least personalize it for yourself? Like, what were some things that you know, sort of, you know, you grew as a, you know, your life force grew because of knowledge? What were those things? I mean, it's all misinterpreted.
Well, it was a lot of things contribute to my consciousness. One was growing up in an era when there was segregation. I remember I was born in Chicago, and I remember we moved from Chicago to Louisville, Kentucky when I was in like the 4th grade, and it was extremely segregated. There were 2 little movie theaters right across the street from each other where black people were allowed to go. All the movies were like 3 or 4 years old. So my father loaded us onto the car and drove to southern Indiana so that we could go to a drive-in movie. And they refused to let us in. And that's one of my most vivid memories of that time. And that caused me to want to explore why that was happening. You know, and what made people think, what made people think that they were better than someone else.
Exactly.
Just because of the way they looked. And that drove me to everything else that I've done in my life, pretty much, in terms of trying to variations and ethnicities, but there's only one race. Darwin had it wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, let's get into that. I agree with you. There's one human race.
Exactly.
So
people need to acknowledge that.
Explain, though. This is important for education. What does make us different? Because we are one human race. Is it?
I think it's just. I think environment. You know, I've been in environments where race wasn't even an issue. And I've also been in environments where it was. And the contrast is ridiculous. I mean, I don't understand people's thought process. You know, that bigotry. I just don't understand that concept. I don't know where it's coming from.
No, I mean, it's like when you went to Louisville, so you had separate theaters and you were seeing outdated films. Did you get the sense that there was a self-loathing amongst the white colored people? I just, to me, that's where, you know, we have a lot of different.
I think it's ignorance. Basically, it's ignorance, and people don't think for themselves. They just go along with whatever trend is popular. If all your friends are racist, then you're going to end up being a racist if you're influenced by them.
Right.
So, I don't know what the answer is. I think people just ought to concentrate on similarities rather than differences.
Absolutely. I mean, it would, and I guess, I mean, you were a young boy when your dad, was he an activist for social justice? I mean, the idea that...
Not blatantly. I mean, my father was a chiropractor, and he had a thriving business in Louisville. In fact, Muhammad Ali was one of his patients.
Oh.
And I have a picture of him.
Oh, that's so. Wait, Muhammad would just stop in on like if he was, like he would come down to.
Yeah, it was before he became Muhammad Ali. He used to catch it like that.
Yeah.
And I have a picture of my father with Cassius Clay. And, but all in all, the memories of my childhood, I didn't. That was the most blatant racism I ever experienced when I lived in Louisville. And then we moved to Seattle, and that was a total contrast.
Absolutely.
The high school I went to was a really diverse environment. It was people of all stripes, and everybody got along. I didn't experience any racism. But, that was in the 60s. I graduated from high school in 1964. And just looking through my yearbook, there's some of everybody. Asians, Jewish people, Caucasians, black people, Hispanics. There was everybody in Seattle that went to my high school, Garfield High. And everybody got along.
In Louisville, was there like literally I know in Tulsa and places there would just be, black parts of town where it was all black-owned stores, commerce, and everything like that. And, like people like Leon Russell and other people would venture out there to go and experience the music and things like that. But I'm just curious, like, were the clubs segregated in Louisville? Were you too young to really go?
I was too young to even know. Like I said, I was in the fourth grade.
You were young, yeah, you were really a kid. So when you got to Seattle, when was the first definitive moment, or do you have a memory of when you realized that that music really transcended all skin color and was really a healing?
I didn't. When I graduated from high school, I joined the Army immediately. I graduated in June, and in August I was in basic training. Because I didn't know what I wanted to do yet with my life. I met some guys in Vietnam that were in the Army band that inspired me to want to be a musician.
Who were those cats?
So
I need to know about. You were in Saigon.
Michael Carvin.
Are you kidding me? You met Carvin? Dude, I interviewed Michael a couple years.
I met him in Vietnam. He was in the Army band.
God, that is so insane. Okay, hold on.
And I just talked to.
Go ahead.
I just talked to him the other day. He said he's moving back out to the West Coast, and that we're going to be playing some. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, Michael's a dear friend. He loves me. He knows. We had a really great hang together a couple years ago on my show, and he talked about. I mean, he grew up in the wards in Houston, but so when you
right.
What was the how did music? I know in World War II, people like Phil Upchurch and Don Menza, a lot of these guys, John Hurd, thank God that they had abilities in the arts and music because it kept them off the battlefield. Otherwise, they probably would have been in serious heavy artillery. But I haven't, like Clarence McDonald, the great keyboard player, he was in full-on, combat in Vietnam, and did not, as far as I know, didn't pick up an instrument. What was the Army band like? What kind of venues were you playing? And
okay, for one thing, I was in Vietnam very early. I didn't even carry a weapon in Vietnam. I was there 18 months.
So it was like before things got really ugly.
Before the Tet Offensive.
Yeah. Okay.
It was before the Tet Offensive, so there wasn't that much fighting going on. It was more, I guess, reconnaissance or whatever. But all I could tell some stories about Vietnam.
Yeah, please. No, I mean, please tell a story.
It was some scandalous folks over there. I trained as a communication specialist at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and when I got to Vietnam, there was no need for my job skills, so they put me in a supply room as a supply clerk. And the supply sergeant was a scandalous. This cat was selling trucks and Jeeps on the black market.
Oh my God! Wait, he was selling them.
And that kind of stuff was common.
Right.
I mean, you talking about some scandalous folks. And the higher the rank, the more scandalous they were. I couldn't believe it. We're over there talking about fighting for our country, and these people selling Jeeps and deucing and a half trucks, and probably weapons, too, to our enemy, so-called enemy. The whole thing, military operations, it's all about culling the population. They all have the same goal, and they're all in cahoots. That's my opinion, anyway.
What did you say? Coloring the population?
Culling.
Culling
Reducing.
the population. Yes, culling the population. So
the population. There's a lot of people who think there's too many people on Earth.
Yeah.
Henry Kissinger's famous quote: "There's too many useless eaters." That's the mentality of especially the administration that's happening right now in this country. There's too many useless eaters. And that's been the prevailing mentality since day one of this country. When they came over here trying to exterminate all of the indigenous people. But it's happening in Brazil right now.
In
fascism.
Right. When you left high school wisely, you didn't know what you wanted to do. You wind up doing communications in Oklahoma in the Army, and then you go to Vietnam. Were you immediately jaded by the experience, or was it only in hindsight that you realized the level of corruption?
When it was happening, it was almost unbelievably funny.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was like a psychedelic.
I never felt threatened or anything.
Sure.
When I was in Vietnam, for one thing. I mean, it was people used to walk around getting high, smoking weed, walking around the camp, and all the cats I hung out with were in the Army band, so it was kind of prevalent.
Wait, so dude, this is insane, man.
That's how I got into music. There was this cat named George Serranovich, great drummer.
Wow.
He played with this band called Love back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And he died really young, but he was a really good friend of mine, and I think about him all the time. But him, and there's some other cats, a cat named Chick, tenor player, whose last name I can't recall, but he used to walk around the post. And we lived at 10th CDB. It was in Tan Son Nhut, where the Saigon Tan Son Nhut Airport is now. and it was Thompson New Air Base, and all the soldiers lived in tents. It was called Tent City B. And we used to go and hang out in Benoit and Long Bien and Saigon. And it was like party central. You know, it wasn't, you didn't even realize you were in a war zone because there was nobody fighting.
Okay, I have to excuse.
I didn't even carry a weapon. I was over the 18 months and never carried a weapon.
Sure. No. I mean, it's so great to talk to you because, I mean, I taught history for a few years, and, you know, you just assume that, or the impression is that we were mired in combat right off the bat. But you're telling me that your communication, reconnaissance was basically the name of the game, but your specialty was not needed there? It seems like communications would be right up what they needed.
Well, you know, I learned how to run wire, hook up teletype machines, all that kind of stuff.
So this is okay. So
when
this
I got
is the
there,
yeah.
They put me in. They put me as a supply clerk because there was no need for my MOS, military occupational specialty.
So when you left in
when I got back from Vietnam, I was stationed out in the Mojave Desert at Fort Irwin, and I was a lifeguard because I could really swim.
I mean, you got some really nice gigs, man. I was just going to say that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, all things considered, my military experience just led me to what I wanted to do in my life, basically.
Well, no, Muziki, I want to. This is really important.
My calling.
I mean, at first, really, I mean, it was comical and psychedelicized that there was this level of corruption. So it was funny, but then when did it turn to the idea of actually really realizing that
how corrupt it was?
Yeah, well, I was going to go back to what you talked about earlier a little bit about just sort of the useless feeders. What did Kissinger say? What did he call them?
That was Kissinger said, useless eaters.
Useless eaters, like the original sin of this country of slavery, of the indigenous people being slaughtered, and then also now that you're talking about corruption. When did it turn for you? When I'm not saying you became an activist, but I mean through your music you were always channeling that. So when did that happen in the bands in Vietnam? I mean, did you start to really develop a different feel, like where you were like, this is not copacetic?
Not really. You know, I didn't really start even thinking in terms of politically or anything until I got into my troop, really. I mean, I've always, you know, I never really thought a whole lot about racism or anything after I left Louisville, because, like I said, in Seattle, the environment was so diverse, and everybody hung out with everybody pretty much. That was just the neighborhood I lived in. I realize now there were parts of Seattle where that wasn't happening. But when I was living in it and involved in it, you know, I didn't really experience much racism at all.
You left.
It wasn't until I got in.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got into Mime Troop where I started really developing a political consciousness. That's what the Mime Troop was, political.
Yeah, well, no, I just found these. One reason I reached out to you was, you know, the Spirits called because I was just digging through this thrift store in Tucson where I live and where my show is based, and I found these original pressings of the Mime Troupe from the early '80s, and this one is this was on. It's interesting because it came off the It was pressed on the Flying Fish label, which is out of Chicago, which is your home, where you were born. But it's the San Francisco Mime Troupe, and the name of the album is called The Album. And Muziki Duane Roberson is not only playing synthesizers and keyboards, but you're also listed in the cast as well.
Yeah, well, every now and then I used to play little, extra characters. Like we had this band called Los Hermanos Lemos.
Oh, I love
the
that.
Lame Brothers.
The Los Hermanos Lemos.
Yeah, and I played accordion in that one. It was like a little mariachi thing. And every now and then I would do little bit parts. Mostly, though, I did a lot of composing for the Mime Troupe. And I brought a level of, before I got there, it was mostly like, Bruce, who's the musical director, had come out of Country Joe and the Fish. So they didn't know anything, about sophisticated harmony and stuff like that, which is what I studied in college, theory and composition. So I brought a level of sophistication to the music that hadn't been there prior to me getting there.
All right, well, we're going to have to vet this.
In terms of harmonically and stuff. Beg your pardon?
No, this is something that I just want to go back. We're hitting on all these different themes here with Muziki Duane Roberson here live on Power Talk. But when you graduated high school and you went to Vietnam and you met up with Carvin and the drummer from Love and Chick, we had sort of moved from like this. These cool this trio conversational stuff with Motion and Bill Evans and Claire Fisher and these cats, and then it was kind of like right at the beginning of Train's like modal period, and also when Ron and Tony were the infamous Plug Nickel sessions when they basically started to break up time and form on standard tunes. And I'm trying to figure out with you guys, like, when you were in Vietnam playing these clubs, what were you hearing and what were you hearing in your mind? Like, what kind of music were you playing? Were you listening?
I wasn't playing.
Oh, okay.
I didn't start playing until I got back from Vietnam.
Okay, so you just were hanging out with those cats.
I was listening and being inspired by these cats. I didn't play any music until I got back home.
Can you talk about what was inspiring about? I would love you to talk about what was inspiring. It's amazing to me that. So, did you even pick up an instrument before then, or no?
Not really.
Wow,
no.
amazing, dude. You're like an avatar.
I was 22.
Yeah.
And I still never had any lessons. I'm self-taught on the instrument, but I studied composition and theory, and which still is composing. I've been blessed in terms of being able to compose in a lot of different situations, theater-wise. Blessed in that area, I guess, and able to compose.
What? Okay, so what were you hearing from them? Is it fair to say you really weren't because like Quincy Jones was out in Seattle, but again, you were in high school. It wasn't like you were like.
Yeah,
you weren't that hip to the scene. So it was yeah.
Before I got to Vietnam, I wasn't even aware of jazz really. But when I got to Vietnam, the PX, which was the stores on base, they had all these Blue Note records, and I still have my Blue Note collection from Vietnam, 2 boxes full.
Wait, this is this is so classic. It was a bookstore, record store?
It was the PX, the Post Exchange, and they sold everything. Yeah, it was like going in Target or Kmart or something. And they had a record section. I bought all these records, and I still have a lot of them. I was way into Blue Note, Impulse, Prestige, any label that had jazz, because these cats inspired me. I would go and listen to them, and I was just so into it when I was listening that it made me want to do it.
Specifically,
so that's what I did.
Oh, I totally. No, I mean that's my pocket. It's so great that I mean, like, was it? Who were you getting off? I guess more specifically, because some of the cats just were like, serious, like, they could just play. But as far as arranging and composing, who were the guys on those labels that you always look?
One of my main inspirations for composing, or one of my main guys that I consider is Horace Silver is one of my main influences.
Explain why.
Why?
Yes.
Just because his music is so accessible. I mean, almost anybody can enjoy listening to Horace Silver because his music is not too complicated that some people find it, beyond their comprehension, and it's all groovy. It all grooves. Another one of my favorite composers is Herbie Hancock.
Sure.
But my favorite musician overall is Wayne Shorter. He's just very prolific, and his music went through so many different genres, which is what I try to do with my music. I try to, I like all kinds of stuff, from reggae, Afrobeat, to the more extreme out, like Train was playing some really out stuff.
Oh, yeah, Dolphy, that's
Albert Eiler.
Yeah.
Sun Ra. I mean, I appreciate all of it. But like I said, the more accessible stuff, like Horace Silver. I mean, when I first heard the song from my father, I was hooked.
It's just so funny because I ran into like Tokyo Blues, I think that's the name of the album, Horace Silver,
yeah,
I was listening.
Yellow cover.
Yeah, he's got these beautiful Asian women around him, and the record store cat that he threw it on, and it was, and I've interviewed Randy Brecker and John B. Williams and Billy Cobham all multiple times, and they were in Horace's traveling band with Benny Maupin. This is going back to like 68 or so, and Horace Silver was in the jukeboxes. In listening to that music, I just said, this is ascertainable to any cat. It's just the way you described it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
His music is some of the most accessible music on earth, in my opinion. As
an arranger, Go ahead.
His music is just it's soulful, and anybody that has a soul can recognize that. That's just how I feel.
Well, you're not alone. I mean, you talk about cats that were playing in mixed. Again, I don't like to use the word mixed race bands. There's only one human race, but people of different skin colors.
Well, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, like Weather Report is a perfect example. That was my favorite fusion band. Them and Steps Ahead, and what's the one that Will Kennedy was playing in?
Well, I was just going to even go back to
Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, the yellow. Right. No, I mean, I was even going back to like guys that were playing in bands, regional bands that I've interviewed that cut albums on Capitol, and they would play tunes like Horace Silver tunes, and they would play Cannonball Adderley tunes, and they would play some Crusader tunes. It seems like those bands were the most accessible. Joe Sample was an incredible writer too.
All those bands were off the chain. That era is the era of the '60s. That's the most that's the era that most influenced my playing in life and compositions and stuff. But now, I mean, after Miles started changing the whole landscape of the music when he went in other directions. He changed directions a bunch of times.
He did.
From the hard bop, then he went into the modal thing, and then he got into the fusion thing. And, I mean, Miles was a hell of an innovator, and he influenced generations of musicians. Like Train got the modal thing, his concept from Miles. Miles there's a great documentary out about him right now called The Birth of the Cool that's playing in theaters about Miles and the influence that he's had on the music.
Can you explain? That's interesting. I remember I did 2 interviews with Joe Sample before, rest in peace, and he's in my first book, which is coming out very shortly. And he talked about, he's like, I thought it was madness when people were like, well, who's the next? Who Sonny Stitt for a long time got labeled as the next Charlie Parker, and it's like, Joe Sample's like, this is madness. Who the heck is going to be the next Charlie Parker? It's not about that. It's who's going to be the next innovator of the music. And and he said
Charlie Parker
he's
did
like,
his thing, and it was impressive.
Right.
He's gone now.
Right. Why do you want to? Why would you even try to copy that? Like, I mean, like even try to like who's the next Bird? But the point is that Miles said the next person who's going to change the music is John Coltrane. But you're telling me that Train's modal style actually came from Miles?
I think that Train was influenced by Miles in the modal concept. When you look at the records that Train plays on with Miles, that's when the modal thing started happening. Before that, it was all rhythm changes and bebop and hard bop. Then Miles came out with all blues, kind of blue. That record, that's when the whole music landscape changed. When modality came into
that was like 59-60, or is that 60?
Yeah. When did Train make Love Supreme?
Yeah, I think that was 64 or 65, in that range. I'll have to look that up.
Well, something around in there.
Can you talk? I mean, were you? I need your help on this though, like, because like, so that was, he changed the music many times, but
exactly.
And then
he was an innovator,
right? And so, going back to these boxes of Prestige records in Vietnam, then you would go see Carvin and these cats, and what were they playing?
They were playing all kinds of stuff. I mean,
you're in Vietnam.
George Serranovich was more of a rock drummer.
Sure. I got to look this cat up. Serranovich.
But he was really funky.
Right.
But Michael Carvin was playing straight ahead. So I was hearing it from both angles. I was hearing the straight ahead angle and then the really funky stuff also.
Wow.
From George.
George Serranovich, born in Pittsburgh, 1944, grew up in Duquesne.
You Googled him.
I am obsessed now with Serranovich, dude. This is unreal. Arthur Lee and Love.
Did you say he played with a band called Love?
Yeah, Arthur Lee and Love. They were amazing. I mean, I know their album.
Yeah.
That's so you were getting the funky rock.
He was one of my best friends in Vietnam, George Serranovich. Yeah, I miss him too.
Yeah, rest in peace, man. When did you? To me, like, when you came back from Vietnam, I mean, this was a little bit after, like, Mills College. And
I got back from Vietnam in 67, and I got out of the Army in 1968.
And then you started to, and then you, did you go to San Francisco State? Where did you go to music school?
I went to San Francisco City College first
Wow.
for a year, and then I transferred to Lone Mountain College, which was it was all women's college at first, but then it was a co-ed for about, it's defunct now, I think. But it was really great little school, and I had a really great theory teacher named Matt Crook, and he taught me well.
What did he? What I mean, it's so interesting because you didn't have. What was he? How did he? There's great stories, where when Train first joined Miles and he'd go up to him and say, "What do you want me to play? What do you want me to play?" And Miles would just turn his back on him, and eventually Train figured out he just wanted.
Yeah, some great stories.
He wanted him to be himself, but I mean, with this.
Train and Miles.
Right, Matt Quill.
There's one story about Miles. Train said, "I don't know when to stop," and Miles said, "Just take the word out your mouth."
Yeah, right. No, absolutely. I mean, and he was just like a Zen master in some ways. But how did Quill? What was the Zen mastery of Quill? How did he help you develop your own individual style?
Matt Crooks, you talking?
Yeah.
My teacher?
How do you spell his last name? Yeah.
It's Crooks, I think.
Yeah, Crooks. Yeah, how did he help? How did he get you to really be an individualistic writer?
Well, I don't know if he did. I remember the first. He showed me how to do voice leadings, and this is a beautiful tune called "A Child Is Born."
Oh yeah.
And I still play it to this day, and I remember the voices that he showed me, and I just took it from there, basically. Yeah, that was the first tune I played with sophisticated harmony. And, I just kind of just expounded upon that, expanded on it, and developed my thing. And now I try to just be as unique as possible when I write. I try to, every now and then I'll write a tune with some 2-5-1 changes, like the standard forms for tunes. I like to write unique stuff and odd meters and stuff like that. And from the response I get when I play, I'm on the right path.
No, I was going to say, because it was like such a hotbed of the Bay Area. When I interviewed George Duke, rest in peace, he was playing at the half note or the half.
Oh, man, there used to be some great clubs in San Francisco.
With Al Jarreau and
Both and
oh yeah,
Keystone Corner, the Jazz Workshop. There was it. I mean,
Bop City.
San Francisco was, like you said, was a hub of creativity back in the day. It was, you could go and hear all kinds. I mean, Art Blakey and Jazz Messengers at Keystone Corner. Bobby Hutcherson at the Both and. I mean, you could go. In one night, you can go around and hear 4 or 5 different great groups in San Francisco.
I'm trying to.
You said the half note.
Yeah, no, but the larger point is and that I want you to expound on is you didn't have to. You could go to college, but your real education, like you said, you're doing okay by the reaction you're getting from the audiences, but your education came on the bandstand. So, your Crooks could give you a template, but then you could actually go out and play all the time and get comfortable being yourself.
Yeah, and then I had some great mentors too, like Bishop Norman Williams.
Oh, dude. Oh, man.
Took me under his wing and taught me basically how to play changes. Because he was a bebopper, and I used to play with him a lot, and he had this church, if you can call it that, the One Mind Temple. That's how he got to be a bishop, by the way. Norman Williams, Bishop Norman Williams. We played in this church, the One Mind Temple, which is now the Church of John Coltrane. And we played there every week, and we would play, train stuff, out kind of stuff. But then when we played at, Haight level or something like that, there's all these little clubs in Haight district, and we would play bebop, and that's where I learned how to play changes, basically.
I need to know, like, I mean, because these are all my people, like Babatunde Lee, Michael Howell. These are all my friends. Like, I love these cats. Like, who was in those bands?
Okay.
Glenn Howell. I mean, John Turk. I mean, these guys are the salt of the earth characters. I actually thought you were younger than these cats, but you were right in it.
Like I said, when I came out of the Army, I was 22 and didn't know anything. I wanted to play saxophone. I bought an old saxophone, and it turned out to be a C melody. So I think I pawned it or something, or sold it, and ended up playing piano. And that's what I've been doing ever since, playing piano on keyboards and stuff. I actually been playing vibes now for about 15 years, too.
Oh, wow. No, so, I mean, I mean, it wasn't just you and Bishop. I mean, who were in those groups?
No. There was a bass player named Michael George. He was from Trinidad. And I also played in a band with him called the Caribbean All-Stars.
Wow.
There was another saxophone player named Robert Birch. Played tenor and soprano. The drummer was Pierre Baines. And who's the bass player? Oh, the bass player, Michael George.
Michael George, yeah. That's amazing stuff. And you play at the Haight Flats or whatever?
Haight Level.
Haight Level.
I think it was called Haight Level. Yeah. And they had what was the other one?
Yeah, there was also the Pierce Street Annex too. But because I mean, like members of
down in North Beach, there was like 2 or 3 different clubs down there.
Right. I'm still trying to figure out. Was Bob City still around, or the Red Balloon, or
Bob City. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, that was like in the 50s. That was still going on. But I mean,
yeah, I think that was a little bit before my time. But I remember Bishop used to talk about Bob City all the time.
Yeah, dude. That's what it was like. That was Eddie Henderson and Dick Burke would be like jumping up outside the window there when they were in high school to try to get in. It was just it would go on all night. But I mean,
actually, Eddie Henderson and Capo, Julian Priester played on the record I did with Babatunde, Levels of Consciousness, back in the day.
Hold on, you were on that album?
Yeah.
Oh my, that's one of my favorite levels of Babatunde. Well, I've interviewed Babatunde. I love it. I hope he's doing. I know he had some heart issues. I love that dude so much. He was one of my earliest supporters of my show.
When I first met Babatunde, we played in a band called Kwani and the Quanditos.
With Todd Barkin. Todd Barkin.
He wasn't even playing traps then. He was only playing congas. Pardon?
I believe Todd Barkin played in that group.
I think he was the piano player before me.
Exactly. Then
That's how I met him.
Oh my God, dude! Kwani and the Quanditos.
I met him. Yeah, I met him, and I used to go and hang out at Keystone Corner.
Absolutely. Unreal.
Club.
Unreal, dude. Wait, so Babatunde was playing Kwani and the Quanditos. Babatunde was playing congas? He wasn't playing traps? Who was playing drums in that band?
No, he wasn't playing. Oh, man, I can't remember.
I was going to say, because he used to go...
I can't remember the names of a bunch of those people. It's been so...
No, I know. I mean,
my memory,
Yeah, no, you're doing great. No, you're doing great. This is very abstract. This is very interesting. But, I mean, because he said he used to go up to Hippie Hill all the time to play, too, Babatunde.
Yeah, to play the congas.
Yeah.
That's what they used to have drum circles up there.
I got to send you these interviews. You are going to be cracking up when you hear this stuff. Because I did these things I've done 4,000 interviews, Muziki. I mean, this is like... It's really cool to put some of this stuff together. But I mean, do you remember when you actually took one of your original compositions to the public, like the seminal? I think that's probably the heart. I was transcribing my interview with Charlie Persip, and the great drummer, and he said one of the issues going on today is just one of the reasons we talk about all these guys from back in the day is that they were playing so much. I mean, most of the tours, there were cabaret houses and stuff, but most of the tours, at least that he was on, they were theaters. So you'd have a stage show and you'd have a movie, and you'd have 3 or 4 gigs a day, and then you'd have the nightclubs come in, and so like, and then television changed that. But the point is that, I mean, Miles, Train, Mingus, I mean, they played dozens of shows a week, and that also speaks to the significance of music in our culture. But at the same time, you know, today younger musicians.
I played with a band that was a tribute to Mingus called Mingus Among Us.
Mingus Among Us.
Mingus Among Us, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Was there a
We
play?
did a couple of CDs. We did a live CD in Cuba. We went into Cuba through Tijuana because we could, you know, it was
Right. Well, that's a whole.
They're gonna come and arrest me. we had to go through Tijuana to get to Cuba. But I ended up leaving a bunch of instruments over there for them because they were, you know, I mean, you should have seen the cars they had, boy. They were still driving cars from the 40s and 50s over there. It was crazy, but it was one of my most memorable experiences being in Cuba. The people were just beautiful. And, you know, similarities and they have differences. I wish more people would realize that.
Yeah, I mean, it also takes, like, you know, individual or the willingness to think for yourself or not be part of groupthink, and that's the dangerous part of where we're at now with it's
thinking for yourself. That's the bottom line, because groupthink can boy, that can be.
Well, I mean, we're
look at what's happening.
Yeah, well,
now,
no, I mean, it's really we're being contaminated with it, and part of it is also just sort of the hyper commercialization and the need to brand everything, which was not as prevalent when you guys were. I mean, just in general, I remember talking to Joe Sample, and there were like 300. I'll pull up the list, but there was just so many record labels, and then, you know, the 6 major companies bought them all, RCA and all and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're hearing the same thing on the radio in San Diego, and you'd hear the same thing in Portland, Maine. So this rigidity starts to set in. I mean, we really are. It's corporate fascism in many ways. You know, I mean, that's really what's going on.
Yeah, and it's getting worse.
Yeah, right. It's not getting better.
It's getting worse, and it's getting in every level of existence down there. I mean, it's crazy what's happening now with all the banking industries and insurance and pharmaceuticals, and it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy. The world is on the brink.
I have to think that we are, because I mean,
it's a song called "On the Brink."
You should. Well, I mean, the thing is, they were bailed out in 2008, and now they're completely solvent and stronger than they've ever. I mean, they have more. They're stronger than they've ever. I mean, they have a vice grip on everything. That, in and of itself, it's. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't.
It's almost like they want to dictate what is art or something.
Absolutely. Well, and most importantly, you know, when I go see a concert, if I went to go see you, Levels of Consciousness, or just You Now, it's all about letting the body dance and the rhythm of it. And for some reason, we've been taught as a society now, well, jazz especially, or melodic improvisation, has become classicalized. So we now sit and stare at somebody's facility, and quite frankly, you wind up falling asleep or staring at the wall because they're just wanking it after a while. You know, it's not the conversation but in any event, there's still a lot of great music, but that's not what's marketable, and that's not what's appreciated, and that's not what is. And that for a long period of time in our country, at least there was a slice of commerce that involved what we're talking about. And today, that's virtually gone. And the touring circuits are virtually.
Well, you know, what I really appreciate is when I go out and play a gig, and if I have a steady gig, and we are, you know, we have people that come just so they could dance. And we don't play the traditional dance music. I mean, they'll dance to some stuff that's in 7/4.
Where is this at? I need to get there immediately. Where is this?
It's in Jack London Square in Oakland.
Yeah, dude, that's where.
It's called Lungamari.
Well, no, but that, I mean,
we play it the first Friday of every month.
You weren't down there.
Going on 4 years.
Because that's where all the cats before Tower of Power and Mike Clark and Paul Jackson were in Reality Sandwich. They were down at Jack London in the early '70s, playing weird music.
Well, there's still a major jazz club, Yoshi's, is down there.
Right. I mean, that's a very formal. I mean, it's like sit and clap and you can't get loose there. I'm just saying, what's the name of the place that you have the gig at?
Lungamari. It's in the Waterfront Hotel.
And what's the
restaurant?
What's the instrumentation of the band?
It's a quartet: piano, bass, drums, and saxophone. We play saxophone and flute.
So it's pretty. It's not like
Kenny Hawkins. It's his band. Kenny Hawkins and Groovin' Deep.
Groovin' Deep. Every first Friday, you said, of the month, or?
Yeah. 6 to 9. So, and we get a nice crowd in there. We got these ballroom dancers that come in. It doesn't matter what we play, they dance. To odd meter, whatever.
That's I mean, as long as they're doing, I can't stand this. Yeah, I mean, I don't want everybody. Everybody should be letting the body dance. Period. I mean, music is made for dancing. I can't tell you in the last couple of years, in my travels, as I've taken the Jake Feinberg show on the road. I mean, the amount of people that will come up to me in a half-filled bar with a bunch of guys that are playing like astral projection music, and they'll tap me on the shoulder and say, you're blocking my view. It's like, well, just move one seat over. I mean, it's mine. It's like, in any event, these are the things I want to run through with you. We've been cooking here we just passed the hour mark, and we probably could go for another hour, but when was the first record date that you were on? Was it Levels of Consciousness, or was it earlier than that? I mean, the Mime Troupe album here is from '83 with another guy I've interviewed, David Rokish, and I've interviewed.
David Rokish, he plays, and sometimes in my current band that I have.
Well, what band do your band is not the one that plays down at Jack London. So how often does your band play?
No. My band is called Sirius, like the star Sirius.
Right.
BIDNISS, business. It's a play on words. Serious business.
Serious.
And we play, we play it down at Cafe Stritch. Mostly, that's what my.
Whoa, that's in San Jose, isn't it?
Yeah.
Damn! Are you kidding me? That's awesome.
Yeah, I got a gig coming down there next month, actually.
We have a date. We have a date on that. I mean, my dear friend Ronnie Beck, the drummer, plays down there.
Yeah, my gig is on I think it's the 26th. Let me look on my calendar.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, that is fantastic.
Yeah, 26th. 26th. Yeah, I play down there 3 or 4 times a year. I love that venue.
It's a great venue.
It's an homage to Ross and Roland Kirk. That's the name.
Yeah, I've been there to see some watered down organ trios, but the artwork is phenomenal. And I know.
Yeah, and they used to have the Stritch, Ross's original instrument is straight alto, which is stretched.
That's right. You are
And they
100%
had
right.
His top hat, and somebody in his family came and took it from him. But they still have the really nice mural of him, and some of the art is really nice, like you said. And it's a great video.
Well, and they also, I mean, they do bring
for the music.
Yeah, well, I also, I mean, in truth, what I saw there live wasn't that great, but I got to be honest, I know that they bring in some heavy, like yourself. Their adherence to this music is very pure and authentic, and that's very cool. Did you know, like, Henry Grimes? Did you play with him at all?
No, I know the name.
Yeah.
He was more avant-garde kind of cat, wasn't he?
I mean, you're pretty avant-garde cat.
Well, I don't know about that. You know.
No, what about like?
Generally, my music has groove. Some of the avant-garde stuff, though, like.
No, some of that stuff is so out. Yeah,
and Albert Eiler, some of that stuff. Cecil Taylor. I mean, I appreciate the virtuosity and stuff, but it's hard to, you know, to feel a groove on a lot of that stuff, which I always, you know, when I'm writing, I always start with the groove and then add everything else after that. Right,
because that's your boy Serranovich, man. He was always into the funk groove, man. You had to have the groove.
Yeah.
You know, it's just funny because we are definitely connected by the spirits. I mean, I can feel George deeply in this phone call. But again, I'm going to ask Muziki again. First time on a record. Please tell me.
It may have been the Baba Tunde record, actually. I'm trying to remember if I did a record with Bishop Norman Williams or not.
I mean, Bishop did this stuff at the One Eye Temple, but I think you were. I mean, Liebman was on it. Dave Liebman, Michael Howe, Baba Tunde.
Michael Howe, I remember Michael, and who else was back there?
You know, Glenn Howe would play, and Flip Nunez, and
that was Michael Howe's brother.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Larry Van, did you?
Michael played guitar. I don't remember what Glenn played though.
Glenn played upright bass, but then actually the craziest thing is that Michael obviously played guitar, but then in Dizzy's band, Michael played bass. Really, I had some nasty YouTube videos of him playing bass. Did you play Jigogu in Japantown, where like Flip Nunez and George Morabus used to play?
Jigoku, that sounds familiar, but I'm not sure. I know.
No, you were right in that milieu, man.
Elbow Room.
Yeah.
There's this place, the Elbow Room, we used to play, when I was in Mingus Among Us, we used to play there all the time.
Wow.
And they closed and they opened back up in Oakland, so I'm going to go and see if they still have live music or not.
That was really the issue, and when you
Jigoku, I remember that name.
Yeah, because it was the only place. It was the only. It was the only place in Japantown that had like a strict adherence to jazz. Like they'd have jazz all night, all day. You know, people would come by after shows and jam. But like Michael Howe held a gig, and then the Glide Memorial Church. Did you ever play Glide?
Yeah.
You play Glide?
No, I never played there.
Right.
Never played there. No.
Reverend Cecil Williams. I mean, these are the spirits I'm trying to.
Williams, I think you still got it happening.
What did you?
I think.
You know, he is. He's still cooking the groove. I just like when after you went to the City College and then the now defunct school, Longmont or whatever, in the early 70s. Long Mountain. Before your collaborations with Bishop, what kind of live gigs were you playing? Who did you play with in the early 70s? I mean, were you actually playing at the both ends?
Well, one of the first bands I played with, like I said, was Quani and the Quanditos.
That was like,
That was real early. That was prior to me getting with the Bishop. And it was pretty simple stuff, you know. Not as sophisticated as harmony as the jazz stuff. It was, you know, more of a, you know, they had about 3 or 4 women dancing, and a little horn section, but it wasn't really jazz.
Really, it's more like
First jazz
yeah.
experience I had was with the Bishop. I played in like I said, the Caribbean All Stars, and that was pretty simple stuff. So I didn't really start getting into the more sophisticated type harmonies and stuff until I played with the Bishop, really, when he, taught me how to play changes, rhythm changes, which a lot of rhythm changes, where a lot of jazz is written off of those changes. I got rhythm changes. They just call them rhythm changes now, but oleo. There's a plethora of things written off of those changes. But I've never written a tune off rhythm change because I think it's kind of redundant, actually.
Yeah, no, I really like where you're. I mean, did you know the Music Circus with Gerald Oshito, Oliver Johnson, and Raphael Garrett?
I knew Raphael Garrett. I didn't know him very well. He was a bassist, right?
He played with Train too. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I didn't know them cats really.
I'm just going to read you this. This has been like, I wanted to read you this from Jerry Granelli, the drummer who used to play with Vince Guaraldi, and he said, I was just in San Francisco. This is a couple years ago, 2 years ago, and I was staying out by the Haight, and there was a place called the Happy House that was run by the Williams couple. They were straight arrow music lovers, huge jazz fans who loved the musicians as well. They liked being around that creative energy and liked supporting it. Flip Nunez lived in the basement. Dewey Redman lived upstairs. Tony Williams stayed there. Eddie Moore stayed there for a while. Stanley Willits even stayed there. Billy Hart stayed there too. They had a beautiful grand piano in the living room so you could play there. There were people, they were into people coming in at 4 a.m. and playing in the living room.
What? Hello?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you just cut out there. What were you saying?
What era was this? Was this the 60s?
This was right around the time that you got back to San Francisco, like 69, 70.
It was called, I was just a beginner then.
Yeah, I'm just saying, what's amazing...
I used to go and listen to music, but I wasn't familiar with that place.
I just want to read this to you, and then we'll wrap up part one here. Muziki, it was really wonderful to connect with you, but this is, this is what Granelli said. It says, we're talking about the homogenization of sound, especially at the commercial level of music. I'm not talking about what you play in Serious Business or what the rhythms you're playing down at Jack London Square, but I'm talking about like the homogenization of sound as it relates to melodic improvisation in music. And this is what Jerry Granelli said is related to classical music. He said it's happening in classical music as well. I was talking to this great classical composer, and what he said was there's so many well-trained classical musicians now. Key word is well-trained. People can study that. People can study that the great orchestras are losing their individual sound. All the great orchestras of the world had a sound. Now their field is so level that the orchestras are tending to lose their sound. Everybody can play the same repertoire. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I kind of agree. That's why, when I have my own gigs, I don't play any tunes that I didn't write.
Exactly.
I play all original stuff. And I get a really good response from it because it's fresh to people's ears. There's an element of redundancy, like you said, homogenization. And it's happening. You go see groups, and a lot of them sound just alike. There might be a little bit more fire from a drummer or something like that, but basically the repertoire is not unique.
Why? What? Not why. What is your advice to seekers who want to unplug and get away from the fluff and create their own stuff. What, if you remember the tenets, the spiritual tenets, the feel. It's all about the feel. It's like that old line that people say, they're never going to remember, in this conversation 20 years from now, or whatever, maybe just because of memory, we're not going to remember what we said, but we're going to remember what we felt.
Well, my philosophy is this, I actually wrote this song called Free to Be, and one of the lyrics, if you're looking for some answers, you have to seek inside yourself, because there are no external answers, really. You have to seek inside yourself to figure out what your individuality is in terms of creativity. I mean, you can mimic, but that's not really creativity. Like you were saying, the next Charlie Parker. I don't want to be the next anything. I want to be me. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, I love that. Seek inside yourself. There are no external answers.
Right.
Unreal.
Not
it's profound.
Creativity.
Yeah. But, I mean, when you say seek inside yourself, does that mean not knowing if it's good or bad and not caring and just letting it out there and falling on your face and failing? Is that what you're really saying?
I'm not talking about anything negative. I'm just talking about creativity.
Yeah, but in order to break through, you're going to have to
quieting yourself, thinking and meditating, maybe. Seeking quietness in yourself so you can realize what your real aspirations are. I really don't
No, I do.
know how to put it any other way.
Well, no. The other cat that just popped. Yeah, go ahead.
Don't try to be what somebody else is. Charlie Parker was Charlie Parker. So why would anybody try to be Charlie Parker again? I mean, my influences are just that, influences, but I'm not trying to copy any of them. Like I don't try to write like Horace. Or anything. I just want to be me and be appreciated for what I do.
Would you consider yourself a yogi?
A yogi, no. I just consider myself one that's open to possibilities.
Yeah, no. I mean, God bless you. I wish everybody was like you. I mean, of course, that's living in a fantasy land. But the last thing I want to say is, you must have gone to Jack's on Sutter.
I beg your pardon?
I mean, you must have gone to Jack's on Sutter. That was a club in San Francisco.
Oh yeah. Actually, everybody went to Jack.
Everyone that and the cat that just popped into my head.
Yeah, that was
the guy that just came into my head, who was a yogi, and you just, in your own way, not knowing it, you just riffed on what he did all the time. He would meditate in a closet and play his horn for hours. Was a guy named Rudolph Johnson.
I'm hip to Rudolph Johnson.
Rudolph Johnson. To me, you are a, maybe you never played with him, never said a word to him, but to me, when I talk to you, you are carrying on the lineage of Rudolph Johnson, and that guy was a transcendent musical figure. So was Chester Thompson from Tower of Power. That organ, those guys ripped up Jack's.
I know. I hit the Chester Thompson. Yeah. Tower of Power. That was a hell of a group.
Well, I think the point about
my favorite group though of that era was Earth, Wind, and Fire. That band there.
Well, just for some reason, I think I'd rather go see Kwani and the Kwanditos with you and Babatunde, man. I freaking love you guys, man. But I got to tell you, I'm going to private message you a bunch of interviews, and I hope it brings a smile to your face, man. I hope we can connect in person real soon. Hopefully our paths will cross, and I can let the body dance and see you play some bass marimba, and
I would love that.
Yeah, man. This was a ball, man. It really got my Monday off to a great start, and I think that what you're trying to say to younger cats is, find a peace and a silence inside of you. Find a chance to, although I think meditation could be playing the drums. I don't think it has to be some sedentary thing, but there has to be some stillness, some silence to sort of understand what your own internal time feel and your own internal, life force is, instead of just, intaking all this external stuff that does not provide any real answers. I think that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, you got, basically simple. Seek inside yourself. It's, I don't know how to put it any more succinctly than that.
You have to be an introspective person, though, and that's the problem with the homogenization of sound. With my younger daughters,
yeah, well,
I mean, they're growing up with that's I guess the overarching thing. I'll leave you with this point, and you can think about it. It's just they're having digital beats crunched into their ears. These are not rhythms made by human beings. It's made by computers. So over time, that homogenization of sound, it's very hard if you're only listening to that to have true introspection and feel, because it's not a human heartbeat. And as a result, what winds up happening is you start turning into droids. And droids are groupthink. And that's kind of where we come back to this point now of lack of individual thought, lack of individual thinking, lack of individual introspection. Yeah. It all ties together, Muziki. So
lack of individual.
Yeah, just lack of fearlessness to be yourself. And I think that for you, and in a very understated and creative way, you've been doing that for a long time. You let Rokesh know that we cooked the groove, and I'm coming out to hang, man. This was a great hang, dude. I really had a ball.
Oh, man, me too, man. I really appreciate it, and I wish we could meet soon somewhere.
I'll get this up. I'm going to be transcribing a lot of these. I'm going to put that transcript up pretty soon about Carvin. It's going to bring a smile to his face on Facebook. I'm going to be transcribing all this. I'll get a copy of this to you later, and I'll also send you my interviews with Babatunde and Michael White. I've done a lot. I've been shedding for a long time, man.
Oh, Michael White. Wow, that's who I went to FestSec with.
What was? Do you have any story about Fela at all? Just the shrine, or did you just? Because Fela is always a spirit on my trip too. That guy.
I know he has some good herb.
Oh man! All right, Muziki.
Really?
We will end the show somewhere. Fela in the heavens is smiling, man. So just keep it happening, man.
He is.
Much love to you, man. I'll talk to you real soon.
All right. Thank you, man. All right, Jake.
Cheers, brother.
Care.
Later, man.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Muziki, Duane Roberson getting us kicked off on a wonderful Monday. What else is in store this week? We'll find out. This is the Jake Feinberg